£500. That's right, you could win one of 2 prize bundles, which includes a brand new iPhone 16, £500 in shopping vouchers to spend in your favourite store, and an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. What would you spend that cash on? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Ben Leo. Tonight, the former Prime Minister of Mauritius, who masterminded Keir Starmer's Chagos Islands surrender deal, there he is on your screen now, hauled into court on money laundering charges. They allegedly found millions in cash, luxury watches and, interestingly, UK visas at the home of one of his alleged associates. Meanwhile, let me remind you of the British lawyer acting for Mauritius in the deal, Keir Starmer's friend, who boasted about humiliating the UK in international courts.
When you've been to an international court against your own country, won and humiliated them completely, they still celebrate you.
So do you agree the whole thing absolutely stinks? And isn't it about time the £9 billion surrender of our own sovereign territory is consigned to the dustbin of history? Also tonight,
a right to be scared?
No, absolutely not. Who are you scared of?
I mean, there's been
scared of?
Well, I mean, there's
How can they be scared of people who have got nothing?
I wonder how many migrants that lady's taken into her home. 25,000 small boat arrivals have come to the UK since Labour took power, including 240 just yesterday, in the middle of January. And
we started in Syria, dodged ISIS and Turkish bombs.
So you guys are pretty scared in Syria?
Yeah.
GB News contributor Chloe Dobbs dodges ISIS as she mimics a migrant's journey to the UK for a documentary, and she joins me on the panel tonight, fresh from her travels. I'm also joined by the publican and landlord Adam Brooks and the former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. Of course, we'll also have the first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages and the big stories breaking inside. But first, let's get your news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
A very good evening to you. Our top stories. The Prime Minister will join European leaders at an emergency summit in France tomorrow to discuss the situation in Ukraine. Ukraine dominated the Munich Security Conference over the weekend, and US officials have confirmed neither Ukraine nor Europe will be part of planned talks between Russia and the US, which will take place in Saudi Arabia this week. Well, Volodymyr Zelensky has repeatedly said he will not accept a deal brokered between the US and Russia with Ukraine at the table. European governments fearing that any deal struck between the White House and the Kremlin could damage security on the continent. Meanwhile, there are reports the Prime Minister is preparing to overrule his Chancellor Rachel Reeves and raise British defence spending. Speaking last night, the Prime Minister said it was a once-in-a-generation moment for the UK, US and Europe to work together. The landlady of a pub where a woman was fatally shot on Valentine's Day has said she heard two loud bangs, which sounded like fireworks. Michelle Thomas, who runs the Three Horseshoes in Kent, has described customers screaming, shouting and crying when they realised what was happening. A woman in her 40s died at the scene after the shooting in the pub car park. Police who found a car and a gun on a bridge crossing the River Thames believe the suspect may have entered the water. The FBI and the US Department of Justice are going to help the UK police to investigate the Southport killer Axel Rudakabana. In a joint statement, Merseyside Police and the Crown Prosecution Service say they're working in tandem to obtain material which may be relevant. It's believed they're hoping to recover deleted searches from Rudakabana's Google and Microsoft account history in the coming weeks. A stabbing in Austria that killed a 14-year-old boy and wounded 5 other people yesterday was an Islamist attack, according to local police. Authorities say the 23-year-old suspect is a Syrian national with legal residence in Austria who's sworn allegiance to Islamic State. He had been living in a centre for asylum seekers and wasn't known to authorities. The attack took place in the southern city of Villach, near the border with Italy. 3 of those injured remain in intensive care. Finally, The Brutalist and the Papal Drama Conclave were the big winners at this evening's BAFTAs, taking 4 awards each. A Conclave was voted Best Film, an Outstanding British Film, although Ralph Fiennes missed out on the Best Actor award, which went to Adrian Brody for his role as a Hungarian Jewish architect in The Brutalist, which also got the Best Director award. And his fellow American, Mikey Madison, won the Best Actress category for her role in Anura, about a sex worker who falls for a Russian oligarch, and she pipped Demi Moore and Cynthia Erivo, amongst others, for that gong. The Star Wars actor Warwick Davis was honoured with a BAFTA Fellowship for outstanding and exceptional contribution to the screen, and the team behind Wallace and Gromit picked up 2 gongs for their most recent animation, which you may have seen at Christmas, Vengeance Most Foul. That's it for the moment. I'll be back with more in just under an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Aaron, and good evening to you at home. Thank you for your company. I predict a massive political earthquake in the coming years because I think everyday people who don't obsessively follow the news or politics will begin to clock on for the first time about something that's not quite right about the way our country's being run. Let me point to Labour's Chagos Islands surrender as a prime example. How can you possibly explain to an everyday Joe that our government is absolutely obsessed with giving away sovereign British territory to a nation that's never owned that territory before, and we're paying them at least £9 billion of taxpayer money for the privilege? And then, at the same time, that same government is pleading poverty at home and telling everyone they must live harder and poorer lives because there just isn't enough money to go around here in Britain. So how do you square that? How do you justify giving away important strategic British territory and £9 billion in the process, while also telling pensioners they can't have winter fuel allowance because the government is skint? Soon, enough people are going to stand up and pay attention. And when it comes to Chagos, they should be. If you already thought the entire deal stunk like a pack of kippers at breakfast, Get a load of this breaking story today that plunges it to a whole new level of stench. The former Mauritius PM who masterminded our Chagos surrender deal, he's been arrested and hauled up in court on money laundering charges. Here he is, being dragged into court today. Pravind Jugnauth, the former Prime Minister of Mauritius. Authorities had earlier raided the home of his close associate, where they reportedly discovered suitcases filled with millions of pounds in cash, spanning more than a dozen currencies, along with luxury items including Rolex and Cartier watches. And, crucially, get this, UK visas. How the hell did they amass millions in cash and UK visas? One of the associates of the former PM, allegedly found with some of the money, claims Mr Jugnauth had asked him in January last month to hold the cash on his behalf. Mr Jugnauth's lawyer, Ralph Gourball, said the allegations against his client were bogus and no incriminating evidence was found at his address. So what do we know as facts then about Mr Jugnauth and the whole Chagos saga in general? Well, he was the PM of Mauritius as recently as November and took calls with Sir Keir Starmer in the first 5 months of the Labour government last year as they negotiated the Chagos surrender deal. Jugnauth also met one David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, at the Foreign Office in London a few weeks after our general election in July. And in 2022, Mr Jugnauth, here he is, attended the state funeral of Queen Elizabeth in London and was photographed greeting the King. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer's good friend and confidant, Philippe Sands KC, has been head of legal counsel for Mauritius since 2010, acting for Mauritius. Here he is. Sands has acted against Britain, his own country, in 3 international cases, including the case for Britain to give up Chagos. Here's a clip, and this is a good one, of Philippe Sands saying it's fantastic to humiliate Britain on the world stage.
When you've been to an international court against your own country, won and humiliated them completely, they still celebrate you. And that is special. I mean, it's slightly said in jest, but how many other countries have the openness of mind and spirit to recognise that a member of their legal community, a barrister, in exercise of an independent profession, can be retained by another country to sue the United Kingdom in international court, and that is not held against you? I feel very proud of that.
There we go. So remember, this guy calls Sir Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, a great friend. He also supported Keir Starmer's campaign to become Prime Minister. As Guido Fawkes reports, Sands tweeted in January 2020 that Keir Starmer was sending a, quote, strong message, was a strong candidate and had strong support. Then, as Guido also revealed a few weeks ago, Sir Keir Starmer's friend, Philippe, who works for the Mauritius government, remember, entered the Chagos Islands in 2022 and participated in the hoisting of the Mauritius flag. Sands tweeted a picture of the ceremony and captioned it, "It's morning on Chagos, where the flag of Mauritius flies, proving that the rule of law is not only a dream." Just for the record, Mr Sands says the Chagos Islands were illegally detached from Mauritius in 1965 and the forcible deportation of the entire population between 68 and 73 by Britain was illegal. And he believes the deportations and its continuing effects is widely seen as a crime against humanity. So my big question is, what's going on here? Why is Keir Starmer so obsessed with giving away key British overseas territory, handing over billions of your taxpayer cash in the process, in a legal wrangle that involves his good friend acting on behalf of the other party? Let's see what our transparent British Labour government has to say about it all. Oh yeah, silly me. Absolutely nothing. Zilch. They're not speaking about it. There is, of course, no suggestion Starmer or Sands have done anything wrong, but where you have Keir Starmer's mate running around trying to seal a deal for Chagos and the former Mauritius PM being arrested on money laundering charges involving millions in cash and UK visas, you'd expect our government to say something. I don't know what's going on. I don't have the facts. I simply present you the case at hand to make up your own mind. But what I do know is that this Chagos Islands surrender deal looks increasingly bizarre and nonsensical, and certainly, most importantly, not in the interests of the British people. Let's get the thoughts of my panel now. Pub landlord and activist Adam Brooks, the political commentator Chloe Dobbs and the former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. Good evening, panel.
Good evening.
Welcome along. Bill Rammell, does this deal make sense to you?
Yes, it does. And look, I'm a former Foreign Office Minister who had responsibility for the Chagos Islands, and I've negotiated with the Chagosians and Mauritius. And nobody has lived in the Chagos Islands since the 1960s. It was actually one of the most disgraceful episodes in British history, started by a then Labour government to expel the Chagosians from their islands. But what matters here is that there's a hugely important military base that we and the US jointly own, and that has been at risk. Both the last Tory government and the present Labour government were persuaded by legal advice that it was better to secure a 99-year renewable lease to secure that base rather than the ongoing uncertainty that could have removed the base from us. That's what this is about. You make a big weather, Ben, about the £9 billion. That's for 99 years.
By the way, that's the minimum. That's me being very conservative.
That's the...
Up to 18 billion, which Keir Starmer hasn't denied.
And that's £480 per taxpayer.
Right. Well, hold on. It's 0.009% of public spending for the next 99 years. If that secures us a really important military base, then that's what matters.
Secure,
in terms, it's not secure. In terms of the detail, that will come out when the deal has been concluded, and that's the way every international negotiation takes place.
It's already secure because the ICJ has no ruling over the UK. It's advisory. We do not have to adhere to the ICJ ruling now or in the future.
Then why did the last Tory government begin these negotiations? Because they were persuaded by the legal advice as well.
With a deal, I will sit down and listen to them. If it's rubbish, I will send them on their way. That's what the Conservative government did.
No.
Under Cameron, that's what they did.
But they were negotiating proactively.
Cameron walked out. He said, I'm not continuing. He vetoed.
Ben, I'm from Essex. I know a dodgy deal when I see one. You know, and this is diabolical. I used an analogy on GB News last week. It's like me giving my friend my shed and then saying to my friend, I will pay you for the next 99 years for me to use my own shed.
And you're getting the money from your neighbour.
I mean that sums it up perfectly.
Why would I give something away that I already have? That base is at no risk. And I'm pretty confident that Donald Trump and the administration will put an end to this or stop to this because it makes no sense. And I think
if they were going to do that, they would have done it by now. And let me ask you this, Adam. Is £9 billion over 99 years a lot of public money?
And we have
is that a lot of money over 99 years?
Hold on.
It's a drop in the ocean.
The government is pleading poverty. So even if it's...
Yeah, this is 90 million a year.
Even if it's £10 million, which our government seems to throw around like confetti, our pensioners are not being able to heat their homes. We should not send £1 to Mauritius.
Exactly. You can argue that it's being spread over many years. We shouldn't be giving it away in the first place, regardless of...
We're not giving away. We're securing our base.
That's nonsense.
No, it's our base now. We're giving it away. We're basically paying someone to take something from us. It's absolute nonsense. And now that we're finding out, potentially, the Prime Minister that we negotiated with this was perhaps a guy who was eyeing up the money for himself for a few more Rolex.
Who's had no charges levied against him.
Well, yes, he's been hauled into court
He's
today.
denied all the allegations, of course. But it looks like it could be the case that this was someone who is corrupt. Maybe that is a country, Mauritius. We don't know what the new Prime Minister will be like. It's a corrupt country that pockets money. We know with foreign aid, for example, there are plenty of issues of money going into the wrong pockets when you send it abroad.
On that point, Bill, do you think the situation today with the former PM being hauled into court, I mean, of course, he denies all allegations. If anything happens with that, do you think that could threaten the deal?
No, I don't, because, look, that was the previous government. The new government in Mauritius backs this deal as well.
We've been told that the new Prime Minister is criticising the deal.
No, he's not. He's signed up to it. I choose my words carefully. In many parts of the world, there is a practice of going after your political opponents once they lose office. And because there isn't a separation of power in those countries, and Mauritius is probably one of them, between the government and the courts and the judiciary, you have cases like this. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. And what do you make of Keir Starmer's friend, Philippe Sands, KC?
Well, Philippe Sands, I had run-ins when I was a Foreign Office Minister with. I don't have the highest regard for him. He's claiming a lot that he's a friend of Keir's. I haven't heard Keir say that in reverse.
There's a lot of friends of Keir's involved in this, isn't there? The Attorney General...
he's one of the most eminent lawyers in the country. Of course he knows all sorts of people in the law.
Like myself, and the average Joe out there, it looks like this is one big lefty lawyers' club, you know.
Do you not believe in the rule of law?
People that hate this country.
Sorry, Adam, do you not believe in the rule of law?
This guy, Philippe Sanley.
Of course I do, but...
Well, then, you've got one of the most eminent lawyers in the country who was Director of Public Prosecutions for 5 years. Of course he's going to know a stack of lawyers.
Type of people. Even Lord Hermer, you know, he's represented Shamina Begum and Jerry Adams. Why are these lefty lawyers always representing the people against the British state? Why is that?
There's something called the cab rank principle in the legal profession, that you accept cases for all sorts of people, some of which you agree with, some of which you don't.
Represented, I believe, a terrorist organisation in a country abroad that wasn't the taxi cab rule. So, in that case, when it's abroad, that does not apply.
I think that was within the Commonwealth, where there is British legal jurisdiction.
Can you see how it looks to the average person like me? I'm a normal person. I'm looking in, this looks like a big boys' club, giving away something that technically we own, and it's going to cost the taxpayer 18 billion. It costs the taxpayer £480 per taxpayer.
9 billion.
If it's 9 billion, it's 240.
I'll tell you what, you know, if legal advice came across my desk as a government minister that said you risk losing this hugely important strategic base, then you would be shockingly irresponsible not to act.
We've got to move on, unfortunately. Why do we risk losing it? We already own it.
Because we could face legal challenge and lose it.
Stuffed. It's an advanced
well, then we're going to walk away from international law.
Right, we've got to move on. I mean, that's half the problem, Bill. Keir Starmer seems to care more about his position in the international stage with lefty lawyers and NGOs and organisations and globalists than he does about Britain. But anyway, talking of giving away stuff for free, or £9 billion even. It's your chance to win in the Great British Giveaway. We have 2 amazing prizes, not including the Chagos Islands. Here's all the details you need to win.
We're doubling your chances to win in our latest Great British Giveaway, with 2 fabulous prize bundles up for grabs. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. And the best news is, 2 lucky winners are going to win. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
All right, good luck to you on that. Coming up, should migrants who arrive on small boats be refused citizenship? Sparks will undoubtedly fly in our next debate. Don't move a muscle. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Apparently in 1991, I took out an insurance on my computer, which I have no recollection of at all. But recently, I've had a foreign voice ring me and say, unless I pay the £1,000 immediately, they'll take it out of my bank account.
They wouldn't have access to your bank account.
No, they have no access to my bank account. And what you should do, to begin with, you feel frightened. And you think, my God, £1,000 coming up, what do I do? And then Neil, my partner, said, just ignore it. And that's what you've got to do. But they are persistent.
So threatening as well.
And we changed the number and everything. And still, they managed to get through to you. And we told the bank not to accept any £1,000 checks, something like that. But it is is awful, but I say to your viewers and listeners, please, please ignore these phone calls.
Yes.
Even if at the end of the day it's true and they do come and collect £1,000 legally, don't do anything about it, just ignore it.
Yeah. I think there's an organisation you can phone which is anti-scammer.
Is there?
They can do a lot of this stuff for you. I'm no help to you because I don't know what it is.
Well, I might look into that because it is worrying, you know, to begin with, and then they are so persistent.
Yeah.
That is the thing.
My mum had a similar thing the other day, and this is a good tip to remember. And her bank rang her up and said it was her bank, and they needed to get into her account immediately because someone had hacked her account and they were taking her money out. So it's automatically the panic.
Yeah.
You're losing money. Yeah. And they said, just share the one-time password that's about to come to your phone. And at that point, she went, no, you should never share your one-time password.
No.
Anybody asks you to do that, it's a scam.
No,
phone
exactly.
down. So just a good one to remember.
Yeah, yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. Now, the government is tightening immigration rules to make it nearly impossible for undocumented migrants arriving on small boats to gain citizenship. It follows new guidance, the new guidance follows a staggering 25,000 crossings since Keir Starmer took office in July last year. That's according to the Home Office. And 240 yesterday, in the middle of February. So imagine what it's going to be like in July or August. But not everyone's on board. Union leaders and some Labour MPs are absolutely furious, claiming the government's caving into pressure from Nigel Farage's Reform UK party. The big question is, should small boat migrants be denied citizenship? We're joined now by former Labour spokesperson James Mathewson and political commentator Aman Bogal. Good evening to you both. James, do you agree with Sir Keir Starmer here that small boat migrants shouldn't be allowed to become citizens?
No, unfortunately, I disagree with the Prime Minister on this. I'm very concerned about this path that the Labour Party seems to be going down at the moment. I think there's a great deal of reactionary response from them at the moment with regard to the pressure that's been exerted. I think if that pressure was just solely from the Reform Party and from Nigel Farage and his 5 MPs, it wouldn't be so big. But there's pressures inside the Labour Party as well that are driving them to look at trying to replicate some of the language and some of the rhetoric in a bid to try and tackle this issue and listen to genuine concerns from the British public about immigration. But I don't believe this is the way to go about it. I think it's a complete opposite of Labour's values and the values they should be showing in government. And I think what the public wants to see from Labour, what they're mistakenly taking as a line on being hard here on this kind of language and rhetoric that we see and have seen in the past couple of days, is actually standing on their values. You know, they want to see authentic views in politics, whether they agree with them or not. And if Labour stood up and said, here's what we believe in, here's what our values, which are the values I share and have as a Labour Party member for many years, I think that would be a better response.
Aman, I'll come to you in just a second. But James, I guess their values are the manifesto. The manifesto said they'll stop the small boats. So if you're going to stop the small boats, you need to get tough and provide deterrence. They scrapped Rwanda, so I guess they're just doing what they promised to do or pledged to do, stopping the boats, no?
Mm-hmm. But that's a practicality. That's a task and a challenge to deal with. You have to do that within the scope of your own values, and you don't give up your values in exchange for trying to tackle that issue in some desperate bid that it'll work. And we have no idea that such an action would work at all.
Okay. Aman, is it desperate to try and stop the boats in this way? I mean, it seems pretty tame to me. I don't think it will work for starters.
Well, Labour isn't even trying to stop the boats. We were promised that Labour would come in and smash the gangs. Look, the Prime Minister and his cabinet are busy smashing Britain, whilst, as we've seen today, 25,000 people, illegal dinghy-wallahs have come in under his watch. The gangs are smashing Starmer. Look, the truth is, Ben, as far as citizenship is concerned for these people, the DEI bureaucrats at the Home Office have devalued citizenship, being British, as much as handing out candy. I mean, look, last year, citizenship was handed out to how many? Nearly 250,000 people. That's up 25% from the year previous. The truth is, Ben, this is a government which is led by a dinghy-chasing human rights lawyer. We will have a Home Secretary who is a refugees welcome activist. And don't forget, this is another Labour gimmick of skullduggery. This is the latest edition in Labour's great betrayal of Britain. And I'll tell you why. It's simple, because we've seen at the same time that Labour are promising to stop giving out citizenship, Labour is also raising the legal aid budget for the same refugees, well, alleged refugees and asylum seekers, by a whopping 30% to £61 million. So it's a sleight of hand that Labour are trying to play. It's not going to work because there are at least 8 other routes to become a citizen. The Home Office is giving away citizenship. Being British should be a privilege. They're giving it away. And the third point, of course, is Labour recently, the government has put out contracts worth £500 million, expecting illegal dinghy crossings to continue at least until 2036. So it's absolute bonkers. It's a game of skullduggery. They're betraying Britain.
James, they're betraying Britain, your lot.
But I mean, they're betraying their values at the moment by not standing on what they believe in, which is the opposite of what you've just said there. But I do think at the same time, I understand there's a desire. I understand there's a desire to tackle a task and an issue, and that's why people like myself had no issue with that being a priority that the government set out for itself. That's fine. But the Labour Party believes in certain things, and it's not things that either of you two believe in, by the way.
James, why should... Sorry to interrupt.
Labour.
Yeah, why should people who break into this country illegally be rewarded at some point with citizenship?
You can't break into a country illegally.
Well, they have.
Look,
you can't.
Ben, I recently came
They're illegal
across...
migrants, James.
You can't. There's no such thing as somebody being illegal. Under the practice of asylum,
human beings aren't illegal. Is that where we're going?
Under international law, which I know you don't like international law, Ben, but under international law,
Ben,
you have a right to arrive in a country, however you desire, and then you claim asylum in that country. Your case is then handled by the Home Office. That's the issue.
They can claim asylum in the first place they get to upon entering Europe or wherever they've come from. The UK is the last point. The last point of their destination. These are criminals who have broken illegally into a sovereign country. They should not be rewarded citizenship.
They're not criminals, I'm afraid, and nobody's illegal. You can't just be illegal by your very existence.
They are criminals by breaking in, and a big proportion of them are criminals. They go on to commit criminal acts when they're in the UK. In 2013, a Sun investigation, 2023, a Sun investigation found 1,000 immigrants with serious criminal records arrived in the UK on small boats. Let me tell you, James, one was a serial paedophile from Iraq who targeted children in Surrey, and an IS fighter from Iran carrying weapons in West London. You had an Iranian fraudster.
You know why I don't believe...
You had people who killed a pensioner in Manchester. You had a poor lad, 21-year-old Thomas Roberts, murdered in Bournemouth by an Afghan man who'd already murdered in Serbia.
You keep bringing up different crimes of things that
because they're criminals, James. They are criminals breaking in, and they're criminals when they're here.
This is exactly different crimes of different people. You know why I know that you don't care about that, Ben? It's because you haven't cared about any of the other crimes that have been committed here. You haven't talked about paedophilia committed by...
We've got our own criminals. We've got our own nonces, our own murderers, our own criminals.
You never talk about them. You only talk about the ones that are...
This is exactly what the Vice President J.D. Vance was talking about in Munich. We're bringing in this unvetted threat from within. That's the problem. Just today, look, we had the attack in Austria yesterday. That supposed refugee from Syria was smiling after he attacked and killed a 14-year-old boy.
Pulling the ISIS salute.
Yes, the ISIS salute. Yeah, that's right. And today we've had 2 attacks on police officers in France. In both cases, the police having to use armed response. Look, the point here is, the other guest talks about Labour values. We know what Labour values are. These people are international socialists. They're globalists. They have not got British national interest at heart. The very fact that they don't believe in borders. You can't have a nation without borders, just as you can't be a citizen without wanting to be a citizen as a national, as a Briton. And this is the problem we face. With British citizenship being handed out like candy, it has devalued it just to be a mere travel document.
handed it out like candy? Nobody has handed British citizenship out like candy.
Oh, it is, James.
A quarter of a million people were given British citizenship.
One at a time.
Stop saying things that simply aren't true. That's not the case. I know 3 people in the past year, all who, under your view of the world, would have every right to apply for British citizenship. And they do not have an easy... None of them have been granted so far. It is
a man gave you the stats.
Process.
He gave you the stats.
I've just told you. A quarter of a million people were handed out British citizenship just last year.
They handed it out. They applied for it and they were accepted.
Yes.
Look, with the fundamental practices that a country operates, a country has a responsibility.
One at a time. One at a time.
You want you want a country that is isolated from the rest of the world, ignores other people as if they don't exist, doesn't share values, and emulates the copies of the likes of J.D. Vance, a man who was just criticised by the Pope.
Yes,
I do, James.
J.D. Vance, look, what J.D. Vance did was he showed a mirror to the whole of Europe for everything that's gone wrong in the last 20 years.
It's a liar.
And you know what? People like you don't like it because it shows up the failures of the metropolitan liberal elite that has imposed all of this unvetted threat on the rest of us. That's what he showed us.
OK, we're running out of time, unfortunately. James, how would you feel if I turned up at your house tomorrow or next week and just broke in and said, well, I'm staying here, thank you very much?
I think that's an utterly pathetic thing to say, Ben. I think you should really think because that's a pathetic comparison to draw, isn't it?
It's the same thing.
We know your views, Ben. We know your views here. You pretend to sit and mediate this debate. Really, you agree with the other guests. We do this every week when I come on, by the way.
Well,
we know the Britain that you want to see. It's not the Britain that I believe in.
I want strong borders. I want strong borders.
Equality,
no foreign criminals, no strange men from abroad.
Other human beings. Christian values, Ben, that's what that is.
Yeah, all right, thank you both. James Mathieson and Amanda Gao, have a good evening and a very good week. A Home Office spokesperson has said there are long-standing rules that can prevent those arriving illegally from gaining citizenship. The government's strengthening these measures to make it clear that anyone who enters the UK legally, including small boat arrivals, faces having a British citizenship application refused. And apparently I used a word there about paedophiles beginning with N, which is offensive under Ofcom laws, so apologies at home if you were offended by that. Right, coming up, it's been revealed that hundreds of Brits have been charged with online speech crimes under the Online Safety Act, just days after J.D. Vance claims free speech in Britain was under threat. Do these latest figures prove his exact point? This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. We've got rain for Madeira over the next 24 hours, some stronger winds too, but much of the central Med will be dry with some sunny spells. We can see from Monday outbreaks of rain, strong winds, 17 Celsius Madeira. The Canary Islands generally dry, and much of western and central parts of the Mediterranean seeing some spells of sunshine. Unsettled further east towards Greece and across to Cyprus. Thunderstorms, outbreaks of showery rain. The outlook though is for plenty of sunny spells, temperatures in the high teens to low 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It is going to be largely dry on Monday. Still chilly out there, but it will be turning milder as we head midweek. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, we're still in this battleground with higher pressure to the east, low pressure towards the west, driving some south and southeasterly winds. But through this evening and overnight, we have a band of rain across Northern Ireland that will move its way north and eastwards, so affecting parts of western Scotland and southern Scotland later to bring the risk of some hill snow. Elsewhere across much of England and Wales, largely dry, often cloudy, but there will be some clear spells, and that's where we could see a touch of frost developing to start Monday morning. But to start Monday morning across much of Scotland, actually it is a largely dry start out there. We'll even see some sunshine across northern parts of Scotland to start the day, but across Orkney there are some showers moving through. Out towards the west, that's where we have some showery outbreaks of rain that could turn wintry over the hills. Across Northern Ireland, cloudy to start the day, and across much of England and Wales, but there are some brighter breaks developing, especially across the south-east of England through Monday morning. So as we head through the day then, we should see some glimmers of sunshine coming into southeastern parts of England through the day, often cloudy out towards the west, with still a feed of showers across parts of Orkney before more persistent rain comes into Northern Ireland later on in the day. Otherwise, it is still chilly out there, especially in the east underneath the cloud, but out towards the west, temperatures up to 8 or 10 degrees. So through Tuesday morning, this band of rain will continue to push its way north and eastwards across Scotland, could fall as freezing rain and snow, so do take care first thing. That then clears its way through, and across much of England and Wales, it's largely dry and fine. Wednesday we'll see some outbreaks of rain, but on Thursday, temperatures will be climbing up to 13 to even 15 degrees. Bye-bye.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. Now, almost 300 people have been charged with online speech crimes. Yep, you heard that right. Since the Online Safety Bill took effect in 2023. Dozens have already faced convictions for spreading, quote, fake news and sending threatening messages. Oh, dear. The first of these are thought to have stemmed from last summer's riots in Southport. And, of course, it comes off the back of US Vice President J.D. Vance, who warns that free speech in Britain is in retreat.
And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America. In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat.
I'm joined now by political commentator and recent victim of cancel culture, Connie Shaw. Good evening, Connie.
Hi, Ben.
Thank you for joining me. So before we get stuck into these 300 convictions on the of online hate speech, whatever you want to call it, tell me about briefly your situation at Leeds. You were at University Radio, right?
Yes.
What happened?
So I was removed from my committee position for apparently bringing Leeds Student Radio into dispute. But the reason why the investigation was started, I believe, and so does the Free Speech Union, was as a result of my gender-critical views, because they said to me in the interview, it's not about your gender-critical views, but how do you maintain an inclusive environment when your choice to publicly post your views makes some people feel unincluded?
Right, OK. And what were your views, your so-called gender-critical views?
Men can't be women. That was it.
Men can't be women?
Yeah.
How controversial.
I know.
And that brings me to this story today. 300 people convicted under these, quite Orwellian laws, online laws, including misinformation and fake news. And I was just chatting to you off air about it. That very example, and Baroness Claire Fox talked about it earlier on Free Speech Nation, saying that men can become women, in my opinion, is misinformation in itself. So how did we get all twisted and skewed about this? What's happened?
Well, the Online Safety Act itself, we saw the full force of it come into power after the Southport riots, when there was lots of disinformation being spread about the perpetrator. My view is, if the government had simply been more transparent, there wouldn't have been all of this disinformation. What do they expect when something so awful has happened and the public want to know? It wouldn't have happened if the government was more transparent, and I think that's a main issue of disinformation. If the public was simply told clearly what is going on, there wouldn't be an issue. But I think what's concerning for the free speech aspect of this act is that, yes, they talk about people who incite violence. That's very subjective in itself. You know, the other day, a man told me online I should gouge my eyes out. You know, that's quite violent, but I don't think he really, if it came down to it, would actually think that I should gouge my eyes out. So it's subjective. The thing that's concerning is this idea of illegal false communications, where if you are to say something that it isn't true, and if the court finds that it causes non-trivial psychological or physical harm, that's what makes it illegal. But how is a judge to rule what makes something psychologically harmful? Because I might have been psychologically harmed. Yeah. Someone might be psychologically harmed by something a lot less violent than what that man said to me. Yeah. So it's extremely subjective.
People would have different thresholds. Somebody would take offence to the mildest of thing, and we know lots of people do, and then others, as you have in that example about someone wanting to gouge your eyes out, you don't care about it. You're not going to take offence. So who is the arbiter then of whether A, something is true and fake news is fake news? I mean, for example, during COVID, if you sat there during COVID, as I did at the start, saying vaccines don't stop transmission, I would have been lambasted and cancelled for fake news, but it turns out years later that's true. So who is the arbiter of truth?
Exactly, and, you know, I agree with Toby Young on this, that it's very concerning that the state is basically going to be able to decide what is true and what isn't. When we have a Prime Minister who thinks that some women can have penises and a Foreign Secretary who thinks that men can grow a cervix, you know, if it's the state who's deciding what's true and what's not true, then that is a very concerning starting point. You know, equally, there's this other aspect of the Act where it says that if someone is found to be knowingly spreading disinformation, that is another way that it can be illegal. But I would like to think that Keir Starmer and David Lammy know that they're spreading disinformation, but you simply don't know. Do they believe this or do they not? So again, that's subjective.
Where do we stand, Connie, in the global stage with free speech? Are we as bad as people make out? Because you see the memes from Elon Musk and
I think we are the laughingstock of the world. For the Vice President to call us out directly and say, look, I'm worried about the threat from within, and, you know, and he is absolutely right. We have students like me being removed from their posts for simply having very non-controversial views. You have people being arrested for burning the Quran, which is not illegal, and, you know, you have politicians. The state facilitates the falsification of sex. The Gender Recognition Act means that men can pretend to be women by law. So for the state to come out and say that they're cracking down on misinformation, I think they need to take a look at themselves.
Yeah, I think lots of our viewers would agree with you, Connie. Just finally, what do you make of that JD Vance speech?
I thought he was spot on. And you know, politicians and figures like Rory Stewart, his main takeaway was that it was patronising, and it says more about them than us. When we've got a Prime Minister calling people far right for wanting an inquiry into the grooming gangs. You can't talk about patronising when that's the state of our Prime Minister.
Quite right, and I think Rory Stewart's probably still stewing at the fact that the USAID scam was giving $1 million to his wife's Turkish, what was it?
Basket-making
organisation. But there we go. Connie Short, thank you so much for your company tonight. Appreciate it. And keep up the good fight. Let us know what you think about that. gbnews.com/yoursay. 300 people now convicted under that draconian piece of legislation, which, I'll just remind you, came in under the Conservative Party, by the way, and not just Labour. Most of those convictions, though, as Connie said, came after the Southport riots. Right, coming up, we'll show you the latest loony meltdown from the Be Kind Protester Brigade and preview the latest episode of our Chloe Dobbs Channel 4 documentary following the journeys of asylum seekers into Britain.
We started in Syria, dodged ISIS and Turkish bombs.
So you guys are pretty scared in Syria?
Yeah.
All right, Chloe will be here in just a sec to share all the details. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
I'm here in M. Manzi's, which is now the oldest surviving pie and eel shop in London. It's been open since 1892, and as you said in the intro there, it's really sort of a dying breed. One of the sister sites of this shop, the distant relative, owned one of their own other shops in Deptford, and that closed on Saturday for the very last time. They've been open for over 100 years. So you clearly see that there's a declining, not necessarily a declining interest, that's the wrong way of putting it, but it's nowhere near as prevalent as it used to be. This was a staple of the East End, and it's now gone from about 300 shops in the Victorian times to under 40 now, and it's declining further and further. Now, also, a couple of months ago, I was in Basildon talking about a similar story with Richard Holden, trying to create a protected status for pie and mash to prevent sort of copycats from stealing the recipe and making it less authentic. So that is ongoing. There's clearly interest in it, and tourists enjoy coming in here. Hopefully, I'll get one of my own pies shortly and have another taste. But it would be a shame to see this go. It's not just about the pie and the taste and the flavour, which is fantastic. It's also about history and community. A lot of people come in here as regulars, so we're just shining a light on a crucial part of London's historic economy. It's a bit of good fun, and it certainly tastes very good as well. Demographics have changed, yeah, and actually a lot of the ownership, the people who would run these shops traditionally over the last few decades are moving out towards the west, they're moving towards Kent, they're moving towards Sussex. So there are demographic changes, and no doubt that is influencing it as well. And as I say, it's important to do stories like this just to remind people of London's history and why it's important to support these local businesses.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Ben and Leo Tonight. Now, one of tonight's panellists, Chloe Dobbs, will be back on your screens again very soon as she stars in Channel 4 series Go Back to Where You Came From. Here's a clip of Chloe in episode 3, which will air tomorrow.
Where the hell have you come from?
Somalia. How about you?
Well, we started in Syria, dodged ISIS and Turkish bombs.
So you guys are pretty scared in Syria?
Yeah.
So are you guys trying to cross the border into France as well?
Yeah. I've got the map here, guys.
How the hell are we even going to get to France?
To cross the border from Italy into France, the Brits face a grueling 14-hour trek.
OK, let's get the thoughts of my panel about this. Pub landlord and activist Adam Brooks, political commentator Chloe Dobbs and the former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. Hello, welcome back, panel.
Hello.
Before we get stuck into your journey and your thoughts about migration now after your travels, let me just show you this little clip. It's from YouTuber Wesley Winter, who head down to a protest outside a migrant hotel in Altrincham recently, I think it's Greater Manchester, and met some very passionate refugee campaigners. How do you think they might have gone for him? Take a look at this.
What's the reason for coming today?
I'm outraged that they think this is okay.
Yeah. What do you think they believe in?
I think that they're scared, probably.
Do they have a right to be scared?
No, absolutely not.
Especially
who are you scared of?
I mean, there's been
scared of?
Well, I mean, there's
How can they be scared of people who have got nothing? Wouldn't you be running from like civil wars, climate change? Wouldn't you expect people to welcome you?
Of course. I mean, we should live in a society that's, everyone's welcome, but at the same time, there's got to be surely some security risk with unknown people.
Why are you leading me into this?
That's just a general question.
video and start a demonstration about homelessness.
Absolutely. I know why I'm here.
Chloe Dobbs, climate change. Climate change. What's your thoughts then when you see protesters like that, and bearing in mind your own journey?
Well, first out, shout out to Wesley Winter, because he's doing great work. He's been able to grow his YouTube channel massively just by going out and talking to people about what they think that our politicians often seem to ignore. You know, that woman there, first of all, I doubt she's taken many refugees into her own home. I expect it's zero. And she's there attacking, like, why would you be scared of, you know, poor people fleeing war and persecution? But the reality is that, you know, that hotel in Altrincham that was opened, it was opened right next to a primary school and an all-girls school. And if you take, people often say, oh, the numbers coming in, it's so small, it's just a drop in the ocean compared to the numbers of legal migrants that come in. The reality is, if you take 300-400 men, even if they were just English, and put them in a hotel with nothing to do, they are going to get into trouble. They haven't got their wives and their kids with them to keep them busy. They're going to go out in the community in gangs. We had that horrible case in Dienzanger of them being outside primary school gates, allegedly taking photos of little kids.
So what did you see on the ground? In this latest episode of the documentary, you're in Syria, aren't you? You were dodging ISIS. Did your experience there, could you ever see yourself in that lady's position, supporting refugees and, you know, haranguing youngsters?
I definitely haven't done a complete 180. I have much more sympathy for the people who are coming here. You start to learn as we go through the episodes, and we definitely will start to see that in the episode coming out tomorrow, why they are moving from country to country. It's not just because they fancy themselves a nice, flashy TV in a five-star hotel. They have genuine reasons for moving on from country to country, but the system has to change, and the answer is not to bring them all to Britain. I think one thing I really came away with is that we need to really hold other countries to account more for pushing migrants out of their countries to make it someone else's problem.
So you don't blame the migrants themselves. Of course, they want a better life, and in some cases safety. You blame the system, right? Adam, what's your thoughts? Especially, what's your thoughts on that clip there from that woman? I mean, she's
I've encountered these types of women on you know, the racist marches and whatever. They don't believe half of what they say. I don't believe that, you know. But going back to migrants, we spend £5.4 billion of taxpayers' money per year on these hotels, on support for these people, when, again, our elderly, we can't afford to give them heating allowance, you know, and our taxes are going up. This country's falling apart, yet because of how lax and how welcoming we are to these people, they're not going to Italy, they're not going to France, they're making their way here for all they can get. And no disrespect to the genuine ones here, I've spent the last 2 or 3 weeks seeing paedophile stings of people that have recently arrived here, you know, and they are messaging young UK girls.
Well, people,
it's
dangerous.
Well, you see in the show in Somalia, they're talking to girls there who have all been forced into marriages at age 13.
Different cultures, isn't it?
And you have to ask, well, if the men from these cultures are coming to Britain and they think it's normal to marry teenagers, how are they going to act when they come to Britain?
Bill, what's your thoughts?
Well, in terms of the female campaigner who was televised there, she does my head in. Because,
she does your head in?
Yeah, absolutely. and I have a problem with people at both extremes of this argument. She's claiming that virtually every asylum claim is legitimate, and yet I meet people in these studios who say that everyone who comes here is an economic migrant. The reality is somewhere in the middle, and we have a system that is broken, and that's what the government is trying to put right. But Chloe, by the sound of it, your experience on the ground has shifted your views somewhat in terms of the legitimacy of some of the claimants.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are a lot of push and pull factors. For example, in Italy, people are leaving there because they're not given any hotel whatsoever, so they just have to sleep on the streets. And so I kind of understand why they're moving on to France.
OK. So episode 3 out tomorrow. And how many more weeks of this?
9 p.m. We've got tomorrow, and then we've got one more week after that.
OK. Great stuff. Well done. I'm glad you're back in one piece as well, especially after dodging ISIS and whoever else on your travels. OK, coming up in the next hour, on the front page of The Independent, the construction industry warns they don't have the workforce to build Labour's 1.5 million homes. A massive headache for Angela Rayner. Just how will they sort that out? That's next. This is Ben Leo Tonight, only on GB News. Time now for your weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It is going to be largely dry on Monday. Still chilly out there, but it will be turning milder as we head midweek. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, we're still in this battleground with higher pressure to the east, low pressure towards the west, driving some south and southeasterly winds. But through this evening and overnight, we have a band of rain across Northern Ireland that will move its way north and eastwards, so affecting parts of western Scotland and southern Scotland later to bring the risk of some hill snow. Elsewhere across much of England and Wales, largely dry, often cloudy, but there will be some clear spells, and that's where we could see a touch of frost developing to start Monday morning. But to start Monday morning across much of Scotland actually is a largely dry start out there. We'll even see some sunshine across northern parts of Scotland to start the day, but across Orkney there are some showers moving through. Out towards the west, that's where we have some showery outbreaks of rain that could turn wintry over the hills. Across Northern Ireland, cloudy to start the day, and across much of England and Wales, but there are some brighter breaks developing, especially across the southeast of England through Monday morning. So as we head through the day then, we should see some glimmers of sunshine coming into southeastern parts of England through the day, often cloudy out towards the west, with still a feed of showers across parts of Orkney before more persistent rain comes into Northern Ireland later on in the day. Otherwise, it is still chilly out there, especially in the east underneath the cloud, but out towards the west, temperatures up to 8 or 10 degrees. So through Tuesday morning, this band of rain continue to push its way north and eastwards across Scotland, could fall as freezing rain and snow, so do take care first thing. That then clears its way through, and across much of England and Wales it's largely dry and fine. Wednesday we'll see some outbreaks of rain, but on Thursday temperatures will be climbing up to 13 to even 15 degrees. Bye-bye.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you not one, but 2 chances to win this month, with 2 prize bundles that include an incredible £10,000 in tax-free cash. But that's not all. You'll also get a brand new iPhone 16 and a £500 shopping voucher to spend at your favourite store. So why not be extra lucky this month? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either. This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Ben Leo, and breaking tonight on the front page of tomorrow's Independent newspaper. Get this, the construction industry warns it simply doesn't have enough workers to build Labour's 1.5 million homes. So to put that figure in context, that requires building 300,000 new homes a year for the duration of Labour's tenure, a figure not achieved since the 1970s. And crucially, as of September 2024, there were almost 100,000 fewer construction workers in the UK than there were 5 years previous. That's according to the ONS. This comes, of course, despite this week Angela Rayner saying there was no excuses not to meet the target, and Sir Keir Starmer doubling down on that pledge. A massive headache for the Deputy Prime Minister. My panel tonight are the landlord and activist Adam Brooks, political commentator Chloe Dobbs, and the former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. We'll bring you all those important front pages next, but first let's get your news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
It's just after 10 o'clock. Very good evening to you. Our top stories. The Prime Minister will attend an emergency summit in Paris tomorrow as European leaders attempt to retake the initiative on talks about Ukraine. The meeting will be hosted by the French President Emmanuel Macron, who's determined the UK be closely involved in all future discussions. It comes amid growing concern over US efforts to agree a deal with Russia to end the war, which European governments fear will damage security on the continent. Now, a short time ago, President Trump said he believes he'll meet very soon with Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, to discuss ending the war. Mr. Trump has sent two of his closest foreign policy advisors to Saudi Arabia for peace talks with Russia this week. Neither Europe nor Ukraine have been invited, although the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio will be there. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer has warned President Trump the talks about Ukraine will fail if he shuts out Europe. And Sir Keir has offered to act as a bridge between the US and EU. A stabbing in Austria that killed a 14-year-old boy and wounded 5 other people yesterday was an Islamist attack, according to local police. Authorities say the 23-year-old suspect has legal residence in Austria. He has sworn allegiance to Islamic State, though, and was radicalised online. The attack took place in the southern city of Villach, near the border with Slovenia and Italy. 3 of those who were injured remain in intensive care. The landlady of a pub where a woman was fatally shot on Valentine's Day has said she heard 2 loud bangs which sounded like fireworks. Michelle Thomas, who runs the 3 Horseshoes in Kent, has described panic scenes of customers screaming and shouting when they realised what had happened. A woman in her 40s died at the scene. Police, who found a car and a gun on a bridge crossing the River Thames, believe the suspect may have entered the water. And The Brutalist and the papal drama Conclave were the big winners at this evening's BAFTAs, with 4 awards each. Conclave was voted Best Film and Outstanding British Film, although its main actor, Ralph Fiennes, missed out on the Best Actor award. It went to Adrian Brody for his role as a Hungarian Jewish architect in The Brutalist. And his fellow American, Mikey Madison, won the Best Actress category for her role in Anora, about a sex worker who falls for a Russian oligarch. And she pipped, among others, Demi Moore and Cynthia Erivo. Now, the Star Wars actor Warwick Davis was honoured with a BAFTA Fellowship for outstanding and exceptional contribution to the screen. And the team behind Wallace and Gromit picked up 2 gongs for their most recent film, Vengeance Most Foul. That's it for the moment. I'll be back with more at 11 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Aaron. Some front pages have just dropped, but before we go through them, a big story. Oh, let's start with Independent. House building plan by Labour is unachievable. This is a big story. The construction industry says it simply doesn't have enough workers to build the 1.5 million homes in the next 5 years, pledged by Deputy PM Angela Rayner, who also said, by the way, there's no excuses for delivering it. We'll discuss that in just a second. The Metro, Putin's war of fire and ice. A drone strike breaks seal at Chernobyl nuclear plant with blazes raging inside the dome. Very good. Seals breaking at the old nuclear plant in Chernobyl. What could go wrong there? 100,000 people suffer in freezing cold after the Kremlin bombs the power station. And the UK to join crisis talks on European defence as Ukraine is not invited to the US-Russia summit in Saudi Arabia on the future of that war. Before we talk about this Independent story and house building panel, I'm joined by Adam Brooks, Chloe Dobbs and Bill Rammell. A story we will bring you imminently when we have the front page from the Daily Telegraph, and it's a big one. The Attorney General, Sir Keir Starmer's friend, Lord Hermer, it's been revealed he defended the terrorist who plotted to bomb Manchester shopping centre. Lord Hermer described MI5's case against the chap, Abid Nasir, who was the ringleader of an al-Qaeda terror cell based in the northeast, as pitiful and far-fetched. So that is the calibre of Attorney General we have running the government at the moment. We'll get onto that when we have the Telegraph front page imminently. First of all, though, panel, welcome back. Should we talk about this one on the front page of The Independent? Big breaking story. Bill Rammell, house building plan by Labour, totally unachievable, according to the construction industry. Not enough workers to build them. We need to be building 300,000 homes a year, which they say just won't happen.
Well, this story is about immigration, and it's lobbying by the building industry that wants a greater number of migrants to come to this country and work in the construction industry. Look, one, the house building target is the correct one, and things like restoring housing targets, bringing in a default planning approval assumption is the right way forward. But there are skill shortages. And, you know, that quote within your clip that 5 years ago there were 100,000 more building workers within the sector. We've had Brexit since then, and a significant number of building workers from Eastern Europe went back, and they haven't been replaced. And that's the challenge the government's got to grapple with.
I mean, even if it is the case that Brexit is to blame for the lack of workers that we have to meet this target, what frustrates me is the fact that Angela Rayner did not consult the industry before making this target to actually find out if her target is viable.
She did consult the industry.
Well, it just seems to me like there's a running theme of Labour not thinking through their policies. So, for example, we've also had another story that the High Court approval that we were promised time and time again on the assisted dying bill is now being scrapped. What I expect has happened
That's not government legislation. So it's a private member's bill.
Unofficially.
Sorry, that's the reality.
But we were promised by Labour time and time again that we'll make sure
not by the government. The private members' bill enables MPs of all parties to put forward legislation where they win a ballot to put that legislation forward. The government has given no support, and government ministers argued on either side of that proposal.
Bill,
so, Chloe, you're frankly wrong.
Bill, even if Brexit were the case, and I'm not entirely sure that's true, why do you still think this target is accurate? Because we've not achieved that level of house building since the 1970s, when we had more, I would argue, per capita construction workers. So knowing there's a shortage of workers, for whatever reason, let's say it's Brexit for argument's sake, why do you still say that's the right target?
Because we need to fundamentally change the system, because we desperately need new homes within this country. You know, there are people being priced out of a reasonable home under the age of 30, 35, people still living at home at the age of 30, 35 with their parents. That is not the right way forward.
Agrees that we desperately need more homes, but we want to make sure that the Labour Party are honest and realistic with their targets and know exactly how they're going to achieve them before they give us a number. I mean, you know, let's look at the budget, for example. We were told we're going to grow the economy, it's going to be a budget for growth, and then we get to the budget and it seemed like they hadn't even thought about how they were going to grow the economy. They're just taxing everyone to death and then begging the regulators, oh gosh, have you guys got any ideas about how we could grow the economy?
And the IMF has upgraded our growth forecast. Look, the reality is there is lobbying going on by the building industry to allow more migrants to come into the country to fill the skills gap.
Let me just get this right, because this is crazy for me. So we're going to build 1.5 million homes, but by 2030 or so, we're going to have another 3 or 4 million people enter this country.
No.
And you want more migrants to come in and work on this?
I don't want more migrants to come into this country.
Labour does.
No. Labour is committed to significantly reducing net migration. You know, we got to over 1 million net migration under the Tories.
It's forecast that we're going to have 3 or 4 million extra people.
It's forecast that net migration will fall to 350,000 per year. That's still too high, but it's dramatically lower than the million we inherited. And you can't turn this over overnight.
Labour's prediction of how many people are going to come into the country, that 5 out of 7 of those 1.5 million homes are going to end up going to immigrants?
No, that's simply not true. Look at the evidence of who gets... If you're talking about social housing, the vast majority of people who get social housing are British citizens. And of those migrants who do... of those migrants who do get it, they've been here for donkey's years. You know, the reality is that British people need homes, and to resolve that problem, you need to build more homes.
So what happens, Bill, when this doesn't materialise, this target? Because Angela Rayner said last week there was no excuses to meet the not to meet the target. So Keir Starmer doubled down on the pledge, but the Considerate Constructors Scheme, the CCS, the industry, I guess, which The Independent is referring to here, they have said that we simply don't have the workforce, and crucially, there's an interesting stat here. Where is it? 100,000 of the workers we currently do have are over the age of, I think, 55, and they're due to retire within the 5 years of Labour's tenure. So we're going to be losing another big swathe of
do you know what, Ben? When Labour was last in power, we were pilloried for setting targets in schools, in the National Health Service, and, you know, for example, we cut waiting lists to 18 weeks by the time we left office. We didn't get all the way there, but part of the way you make progress is by setting in place stretching targets so you galvanise the system to try and deliver.
Did you?
No, I will acknowledge one of the failings of the last Labour government was...
Brown, they didn't build houses at a decent rate at all.
No. What they did...
The housing shortage going back that far.
Well, I think under decades, under successive governments, this problem has not been tackled. To the credit of this government, it's actually trying to tackle the housing crisis.
They haven't got the workers and we haven't got the money.
Well,
so how's it going to happen?
Adam, you're just taking hook, line and sinker what the building industry are saying. Within any debate...
What, the experts in house
Well, but they're self-interested experts, and they're lobbying to get more people to come into the country to fill those jobs.
But the average Joe, someone like me, wants to know who's going to be living in these £1.5 million houses. And we have been told, at the current rate, there could be 3 or 4 million people extra in this country by 2030.
When you look at the Treasury Red Book and that net migration figure falling from 1 million to 350,000...
So still a million.
Yeah, but that doesn't get you to 3 or 4 million. So I don't know where that figure comes from.
Per year, 300k per year.
Yeah.
369, that's another 1.5 million people.
Yeah, it's not 3 or 4 million, as Adam's claiming.
The forecasts are 3 or 4 million over the next 6 or 7 years. That's an official forecast.
That's not what the Migration Advisory Committee is saying, and it's not what the Treasury Red Book is saying in terms of protection.
I think you're being pedantic about numbers. 1.5 million, 3 million. The fact of the matter is you're going to be building, if you do, and according to this front page, you won't get there, you're building 1.5 million homes, yet 1.5 million, Conservative, more people will come in the next 5 years.
But you know what I've learnt in life? Government and politics is the art of the possible. We inherited a net migration figure of 1 million. We've already got plans in place to reduce it to 350,000. We will go lower than that. But the Labour Party didn't say before it came to power we could resolve the migration crisis within 7 months or even a few years. It's going to take a whole parliament to turn around.
And I tell you what I've learnt in life, that British citizens always put bottom of the pile in this country.
I don't think that's true, Adam.
Absolutely, I think we should.
I don't think that's true.
Have Brits prioritised for social housing, for example, 48% of social housing in
every local authority in the country has got the right to prioritise local citizens.
What about this idea? Deborah Daniels, who's a GB News member. Thank you, Deborah, and good evening to you. You've said, Ben, not enough workers to build homes. All those unemployed and those getting sickness benefits for mental health without certification by a consultant should be made to be builders' mates and work on sites. Those with aptitude should be offered apprenticeships to advance themselves. What do you make of that?
Far too sensible.
It's poppycock.
Stop that. Stop that common sense.
It's poppycock. Do you know how long it takes to train to be a building worker? I mean, let's get real.
This country has had a productivity problem ongoing for so long, and politicians time and time again will go for the easy, quick solution, which is to just bring in a load of people from abroad to fill the gap, when actually we've got a heck of a lot of people here, a heck of a lot of potential, but we're just not dealing with the problem because it's more difficult than just opening the floodgates and opening up.
And that's what Labour did in the early 2000s. Lord Mandelson even said we went looking abroad for workers.
Do you know what
flooded this country?
Do you know what the annual asylum seeker number was in the early 2000s? It was 84,000. By the time Labour left office, we'd reduced it to 17,000. It went back up to 97,000 a year under the Tories.
Yeah, but
Labour in office actually tackles these problems.
Have caused that, Bill. Not just the Conservatives. Global factors. Well, let's be honest as well.
And we reduced it from 84 to 17,000 by real determined effort within government.
So I'm just going to say now, the Tories and Labour have both wrecked this country. Sorry. Both Brexit. Tony Blair opening the floodgates. I mean, it's just a catalogue of errors. Whether it's intentional
if what you're referring to is people coming in from the enlargement of the European Union, they were by and large young people working hard who came to this country, put into the system, and then went back. After Brexit, they've all gone back, and we've had many tens of hundreds of thousands of people from other parts of the world.
I agree with you.
Hold on, but why are our seaside towns full of Eastern Europeans under Labour?
Well, do you know what? I'd rather have Eastern Europeans who have reputations for grafting hard than a bunch of, nobodies from who knows where, we don't know who they are, who are just scrounging benefits and bringing their families over.
Agreed.
At least the Poles and the Latvians and the Eastern Europeans are known for grafting hard.
There is a really big problem with our system allowing loads and loads of dependents to come over, which often means that their families overall are not net contributors to the economy.
Of course they're not.
We've been sold a lie by economists time and time again that bringing people from other countries will always lead to economic growth. Well, not if you look at GDP per capita.
Not GDP per capita.
And people are really feeling it now. People are feeling like they're really getting poorer in this country.
And the 1.2 million in the Boris wave from 2021, the Home Office said, well, they predicted at the time, of course they did, that there'll be 5 to 20,000 dependents coming with those migrants. How many were there? How many? 500,000 dependents. Auntie Jo, Uncle Tom, everyone from all across the world, bring your family, bring your auntie, your uncle, your cousins, come to the UK, the land of milk and honey. 500,000 dependents.
And a big part of...
And what are they doing?
And a big part of the numbers are students bringing a load of dependents with them, so older students.
And there was a significant tightening of dependents brought in by the last Tory government in its dying days, and it's been carried on by this government, and that's part of the way the numbers are going to come down.
Yeah, it will.
Got to move on, unfortunately. We're going to a break in just a second, but first we're giving you your chance to win in the Great British Giveaway. Here's all the details you need to win.
We're doubling your chances to win in our latest Great British Giveaway with 2 fabulous prize bundles up for grabs. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16 along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. And the best news is 2 lucky winners are going to win. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
All right, good luck to you. Coming up next, the editor-at-large of the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, joins us to run through tomorrow's hottest stories, including this one from the front page of the Daily Telegraph tomorrow. I mentioned it just then, just before the Great British Giveaway. The Attorney-General, Lord Hermer, Keir Starmer's friend, of course, has been revealed as defending a terrorist who plotted to bomb Manchester shopping centre. There we go. Back in just a tick.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney. Weekdays from 3 p.m.
An absolute monster. It took Chloe and Sean Ing 90 minutes to reel in this gigantic 8-foot-long monster fish from Chigborough Fisheries in Essex. And upon weighing this enormous marine beast, it was found to have been 7 pounds heavier than the existing British record, a 143-pound catfish caught also in Essex. But as I understand it, you actually went for a Chinese meal when fate struck. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So I was fishing an area of Chigborough where you have to fish at a fair distance. So I cast my rods out and then we ordered a Chinese. And yeah, so I got the bite at about 10 to 8 at night. And then about 20 minutes into it, my phone started ringing, the Chinese guys at the gate with my delivery. So I had to send a couple of guys off to go and get it. And then, yeah, the fight, obviously, you can't just stop the fight to go and get your Chinese. So, yeah, the fight went on, for about an hour and a half in total. There's no net in the world that's big enough for this fish. So we had to send out, first of all, I sent out a mate, Alex. He went out there to go and basically use what we call a sling. So that's a safe apparatus that we use to take the fish out of the water. He then went to and he turned around and he was like, we're going to need another sling. So then we sent out another friend with a sling, and these slings are 4 foot long each. So then we had the catfish wrapped up in 2 slings, and it was still slightly longer than that. And then we got to a point where we was like, now we've got to try and get it out of the water to photo, to weigh it, because obviously we knew then that it was possibly going to be a UK record.
GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. More front pages have dropped. Let's start with The Guardian. It leads with talks lay bare transatlantic rift over the war in Ukraine. American officials meet Russians while Emmanuel Macron hosts a European summit. And The Daily Telegraph, 2 big stories. The first down the bottom there, the Attorney General, Lord Hermer, he defended the alleged bomber, or somebody who plotted to bomb Manchester Arena, of course, previously also outed as bombing 9/11, as well. And the Daily Express, another great story. There are some absolute bangers tomorrow in the paper. The Daily Express, farmers driven to the brink of despair. The shame on this government. Farmers who have been pushed to the brink due to Labour's inheritance tax bombshell are calling a charity that works to avoid suicides in record numbers. The Farm Safety Foundation saw a year-on-year 55% leap in demand for counselling services and a 13% increase in calls to its crisis support line. We'll discuss that further in just a short tick. I'm delighted to be joined by the editor-at-large for The Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths, and also my panel, Adam Brooks, Chloe Dobbs and former Labour Minister Bill Rammell. Welcome all. Packed desk here, full to the rafters. Charlotte, we'll get your, the Daily Mail at least, the front page fairly shortly. What's in The Mail on Sunday today? You had a few bangers yourself.
Well, I thought I'd have a bit of fun because right now and this evening it's the BAFTAs and its president is not there, who is Prince William. Oh. And the reason is because he's gone to the Caribbean, to Mustique on holiday. Oh. And I suppose...
With Catherine?
With Catherine and the whole family. And I suppose if I was being critical, I'd say, you know, he probably should be at the BAFTAs because he is its president. But also, we were really... The world, the nation, was really excited to see Catherine post-cancer, you know, doing her red carpet show-stopping thing again. But instead, they've gone to the Caribbean. If I was being more charitable, I'd say at least they flew on a BA flight and not by private jet. And the clever thing that Catherine seems to do, and there's a bit of a pattern, is every time you see a picture of Meghan getting off a private jet looking all flashy, like she did after the Invictus Games, you discover that the Wales family have flown on some normal airplane. Once they flew to Cornwall in a really bog standard Ryanair. Yeah, exactly. So good on her for flying commercial.
Well, the kids, are they with with Catherine.
Yeah,
It's just a family jolly to the Caribbean.
Yes, and it's just been Carol Middleton's 70th, so I think the two things might be linked.
OK.
But Mustique is where they go for total seclusion because it's no normal people basically can go to Mustique. Certainly no journalists, no photographers. It's kind of an invite-only island for celebrities.
At least they've flown BA, I guess, staying patriotic and
And they were in business. They weren't in fast.
They've had a tough all year, so I think they're allowed a holiday.
Yeah, we'll let them off.
Having said that, it is term time.
No, it's not. It's half-term. It's half-term.
Right,
That's why they've gone.
Half-term next week.
It would have been so good to see Kate walking a red carpet at BAFTA. She always looks amazing at the BAFTAs, and I was just really excited, but sadly, she's not to be seen tonight.
She's had a tough year.
I love her.
We'll let her off.
I love Catherine.
Time off.
I said yesterday on the show, you know, I'm not a massive royalist or I want to blow smoke up on them, but the family unit they have created for themselves.
Yeah.
Prince William, Catherine, beautiful kids, always nicely turned out. And I said yesterday as well, of course they're going to be nicely turned out. They're royals, they've got probably unlimited resources, but just the way they handle themselves, I think it's something that Britain can be very proud of.
Yeah, they always put the family first.
Yeah.
For sure.
OK, should we talk about this Daily Express front page? Because for me, it's
just shocking.
It's pretty damning on the Prime Minister. So farmers are being driven to the brink of despair. Calls to a suicide hotline are up 55%, apparently, according to the Daily Express. The Farm Safety Foundation saw a year-on-year 55% leap in demand for counselling services and a 13% increase to its crisis line. Adam Brooks, what do you make of this?
I've been on all the farmers' protests. I stand side by side with them. What this government is doing is outrageous. For decades, they've been protected from the inheritance tax trap because it helps pass farms down to their children. And farming is a way of life. It's not something you can just teach. You grow up on farms, you learn from your parents, and then you take over. So what this government is doing is spiteful. It doesn't make sense. And, you know, I've spoke to many farmers at these protests and I made a speech last week and they are really upset and they are really stressed by this. And what gets me is the spiteful posts on X and that from left-wingers that just say, oh, they're greedy farmers with millions in the bank. They haven't. Many of them earn less than me and you.
Yeah.
They've got assets that they put to work for the people of this country to feed us.
I think combine harvesters alone are something like £600,000-700,000.
Food
so that
doesn't
makes
just
up
appear in the supermarkets or on our table. These people feed us, and they're now being attacked by our own government.
And I mean, you speak about how much they earn. They work so many hours. I'm sure if you break it down to an hourly wage, a lot of them are earning less than minimum wage. This is just going to kill our farming community. And we keep being told by the government, oh, we've done the numbers, it's only going to affect a few people. And look, maybe they are right, but when I look at one of those protests, I went down to one of them and you see how many people, and these are busy people that work 7 days a week, taking the time to come from all over the country, it must really, really be having an effect.
And well,
I'm so scared of seeing more suicides.
The government is not attacking our people. Farmers are still getting a better deal than anyone in the... No, it's not. It's not rubbish, Adam. They're still getting a much better deal than anyone else in society. And let's have a reality check. 54% of the people who claimed the inheritance tax relief under the farming framework were not even farmers. That's a scandalous abuse of public money.
All right, Bill. That said, so what do you make of the farmers? What do you make of this story, first of all? A 55% increase in calls to a suicide line from farmers. Let me just quote to you one lad, Daniel Boomer, his name is. He's 22. He's a beef farmer from Northern Ireland. He described the pressures that agricultural workers face in the wake of the inheritance tax raid. He said, it's really affected people's mental health because it's constant. It's the weight on your chest every day. He's added that farmers feel misrepresented by critics, such as you, Bill, who portray them as rich landlords with millions of pounds. So, although you say they get a good deal, are you saying that their experiences, their lived experiences, as those on the left like to say, are you saying they're lying or they're overreacting?
I think genuinely they're being wound up by campaigners.
You think they're being wound up to the extent of thinking...
Who are misrepresenting the facts, because the reality...
I'm a campaigner and I'm not doing that.
Yeah, but Adam, the reality is a married couple can pass on £3 million completely tax-free if they're farmers, and then they only pay the 50% of the rate that anyone else in society. By any stretch of the imagination, that is a good deal.
So let's just say they get a £500,000 tax bill over 10 years. That's 50 grand a year, Bill. If they're only earning 100 grand a year, where do they get that money? Can you explain that? So they have to sell something, yeah? So then they get hit for capital gains tax as well.
But why should they get a deal that no one else in society
they are
gets?
feeding society.
But Bill, you made the point that most of the people who have benefited from this tax break are people who are not farmers. So I understand why Labour have brought in this policy. But amend the policy, say you made a mistake, and make sure that you're just targeting people who have taken advantage of the scheme like that, and people who are actually farmers, who are actually feeding the nation and keeping our food security in this country, are not thrown under the bus along with the rest of them.
And reassure them, because don't forget, this is an existential crisis. The reason why they're calling these lines up, and I had a drink with a farmer this week, is because it's an existential crisis. This is the way of life. They actually enjoy farming. I mean, I don't like getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning on a snowy day. These people live for this. And what it's done is restructured their whole debate. You know, they thought this thing was set in stone, that they'd do this for the rest of their lives.
I'll concede this. I think one of the problems when you get into, in effect, a political battle, which is what we're in over this issue, you need dispassionate people on both sides to sit down and look at the detail of this. And I think that would provide some reassurance.
What hasn't happened?
It will raise 500 million a year, apparently. Why are we giving foreign farmers 500 million?
Because international aid protects us in the longer term.
Right, so do you think that's fair that we give foreign farmers 500 million and now we're going for our own farmers and making some of them
do you know the whole of the international aid budget is less than 0.5% of overall public expenditure? There's not a trade-off between these two figures.
It's billions.
Excuse that.
It's billions. You're talking about farmers saving a measly £500 million a day, enough Bill, to run the NHS for 24 hours, and yet you call the foreign aid budget, which is about, what was it, 11, 12, 13?
7 billion.
7 billion. Yeah. Still a lot of money.
It's
totally eclipsing.
Out of 1.2 trillion. I mean, let's get some perspective on this, you know. And the reality is you can say for any tax measure, oh, well, you know, it's a small sum of money. The problem is people in this country, including farmers, voted for significant increases in investment in public services, particularly in National Health Service.
500 million.
And that money... But you can say that about any tax change. If you're going to deliver a 24 billion, if you're going to deliver a 24 billion increase to the National Health Service, that money has to come from somewhere.
This is an ideological policy. It's I don't understand why they're doing it. It's shooting themselves in the foot. They're destroying their rural vote just to raise a small amount of money. It's not worth it. They're completely out of touch.
Just Charlotte, before we go to the break, of course, the King had the Duchy of, Duchy Farms and so on, and the product range, and Prince William is now spearheading that. I know they don't get involved politically, but have you heard any whispers on the grapevine about the royals' thoughts on the inheritance tax rate?
Well, they're very much of a different ilk, aren't they? It has to be said. But I can... Well, of course, they have to be so unbiased, don't they? But I'm sure we can imagine their feelings, especially King Charles.
Yeah, indeed. OK, coming up, the front page of the Daily Telegraph, two massive stories. Down the bottom, and I'll bring you the details fully after the break, but Lord Hermer, the Attorney-General, Keir Starmer's mate, he's been defending a terrorist who wanted to who wanted to bomb the Manchester Arena. And elsewhere, Keir Starmer, I mean, this is a massive story. Keir Starmer has said, I am ready to put British troops on the ground in Ukraine. More after the break.
Good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It is going to be largely dry on Monday. Still chilly out there, but it will be turning milder as we head midweek. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, we're still in this battleground with higher pressure to the east, low pressure towards the west, driving some south and southeasterly winds. But through this evening and overnight, we have a band of rain across Northern Ireland that will move its way north and eastwards, so affecting parts of western Scotland and southern Scotland later to bring the risk of some hill snow. Elsewhere across much of England and Wales, largely dry, often cloudy, but there will be some clear spells, and that's where we could see a touch of frost developing to start Monday morning. But to start Monday morning across much of Scotland, actually it is a largely dry start out there. We'll even see some sunshine across northern parts of Scotland to start the day, but across Orkney there are some showers moving through. Out towards the west, that's where we have some showery outbreaks of rain that could turn wintry over the hills. Across Northern Ireland, cloudy to start the day, and across much of England and Wales, but there are some brighter breaks developing, especially across the south-east of England through Monday morning. So as we head through the day then, we should see some glimmers of sunshine coming into southeastern parts of England through the day, often cloudy out towards the west, with still a feed of showers across parts of Orkney before more persistent rain comes into Northern Ireland later on in the day. Otherwise, it is still chilly out there, especially in the east underneath the cloud, but out towards the west, temperatures up to 8 or 10 degrees. So through Tuesday morning, this band of rain will continue to push its way north and eastwards across Scotland. Could fall as freezing rain and snow, so do take care first thing. That then clears its way through and across much of England and Wales. It's largely dry and fine. Wednesday we'll see some outbreaks of rain, but on Thursday temperatures will be climbing up to 13 to even 15 degrees. Bye-bye.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. More front pages have just dropped. The Daily Mail is in. Keir Starmer flies into a storm. Anger as the Prime Minister rejects calls for urgent boost to defence spending ahead of the crisis summit in Paris today. A showdown with Trump as well. And an interesting feature at the top there. If you can watch it on TV, you can read the headline. It says, I cured my menopausal rage by taking magic mushrooms at a £5,000 luxury retreat. Well, that's one way of doing it. The Daily Telegraph. And this is the big one. Looks like a cracking paper tomorrow. Keir Starmer, I'm ready to put troops in Ukraine. So Keir Starmer says he's willing to put British troops on the ground in Ukraine to enforce any peace deal. I'm joined by my panel, Adam Brooks, Chloe Dobbs, Charlotte Griffiths, Bill Ramwell. There we go, remembered everyone. He's writing for the Daily Telegraph here, guys. He says, Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, that the UK has already committed £3 billion in support for Ukraine. Additionally, he writes, it also means being ready and willing to contribute to security guarantees to Ukraine by putting our own troops on the ground if necessary. And he continues, I do not say that lightly. I feel very deeply the responsibility that comes with potentially putting British servicemen and women in harm's way. But any role in helping to guarantee Ukraine's security is helping to guarantee the security of our continent and the security of this country too. Bill, you were the former Armed Forces or Defence Minister? Which one was it? Or was it the same thing?
Yeah, same thing.
Same thing. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, that seems pretty pivotal.
I think we're facing a crisis. For 76 years, the Western alliance has held our security, and the way that Donald Trump is handling things is putting all of that at risk. And let's go back in the decades. It was Margaret Thatcher at the height of the Cold War who led the charge defending us against the Soviet Union. And I think there are huge risks. And if Trump really is retreating into isolationism, and if there is going to be a deal, one, we've got to stop him doing that deal on his own. But if there is a deal that is secured, it's going to have to be policed. And that's what Keir Starmer, I think, is potentially talking about, that you will need European troops. And Trump has said he's not going to put any US troops on the ground in Ukraine. You will need to police that deal. You'll need European troops to do it. And that's in our national interest.
So why the hell is Keir Starmer, when Donald Trump has said he's not putting troops on the ground in Ukraine, who the hell is Sir Keir Starmer to say, well, we'll do it?
But sorry, Trump is actually...
At a time when defence spending is, you know, we're getting rid of £500 million worth of kit because it's defunct and void. We're not buying aircraft carriers. I mean, the Army yesterday, Lord Dannett was saying that we should ditch the Navy pretty much entirely because they don't want to spend money on aircraft carriers. Who's Sir Keir Starmer to think?
Trump is actually calling for Europe to step into the breach. What he's saying is that, and there's an element of truth to this, that since the end of the Cold War, Europe has stepped back collectively from its defence responsibilities, and it needs to step back up. Now, you know, I loathe a lot of the things that Donald Trump stands for, but in that regard, he's absolutely right. And if we're going to secure the peace in Ukraine, which is in our national interest, we're going to have to make a contribution.
Chloe? Sorry, go on.
No, President Zelensky yesterday, just last night, tweeted thanking Donald Trump, thanking America, saying that they're the only ones that could provide peace and a deal. So where is this attacking Trump coming from? It seems to be from Europeans that don't like the way he's doing it. But President Zelensky is thanking publicly Trump and the US administration for what they are doing.
Well, it feels like he's trying to woo. Starmer's trying to woo Trump a little bit here. He's trying to say, "Come on, I know I'm being left out of the conversation," but he's trying to inject himself back into the conversation.
Well, there's an element of truth in that, but the whole world's being left out of the conversation.
No,
you know, Trump has said, "I'm going to sit down with Putin, who's a gangster," right? And he's said
he's a democratically elected leader of a country.
Have you seen the reality of elections in Russia? They're fraudulent.
The reality is, if you are president of the United States, you've got to be able to have a phone call and negotiate with anyone, even if you think they're a horrendous dictator. You've got to be able to negotiate with them. And I think that we have got to be pragmatic about this. And Trump is a brilliant negotiator. I'm glad that he is getting involved. Yes, people might be a bit salty that he was the first to have a conversation with Putin, not have everyone in that phone call, and people will all need to be involved.
But the idea you start those negotiations, you exclude Ukraine, you exclude the whole of Europe. You say at the start of the negotiations that Russia will be able to continue to have some of the ground that it's taken over. That's abominable.
Zelensky has.
I don't know what you're reading, Adam. That's not what Zelensky said yesterday.
He tweeted out last night.
He said he wanted Europe to step up to the plate.
Zelensky tweeted thanking America. Then he also did a piece, I think, with ABC News today saying that he wouldn't agree any deal if Ukraine weren't at the table. I mean, Zelensky,
he's in an impossible position because of the way Trump's handling this.
He's flip-flopping like Gandhi's flip-flop. Should we move on to this Lord Hermer story? So apparently revelations in the Daily Telegraph. You can see the front page on your screen right now. New revelations. Of course, we'd heard previously that Lord Hermer, Sir Keir Starmer's friend, the Attorney General, previously defended 9/11 bombers and whoever else. New revelation now, he's defended an Islamist terrorist who was just days away from bombing the Manchester Arena. Chloe.
I believe this is Manchester Shopping Centre.
Sorry, Manchester Shopping Centre. That's already been blown up, of course, hasn't it, by another Islamist?
We were having a bit of a conversation about this earlier, about barristers not being able to pick and choose exactly which cases they take. But, you know, Adam, you made the good point that, yeah, sure, I don't have in front of me the whole list of every single case the Attorney General has ever taken, but it seems like there's a trend of certain people seem to magically end up being given a lot of dodgy people to represent that are very questionable. And I do have my concerns about activist lawyers and judges in this country. We've had issues with judges saying that people can stay in the country if their son doesn't like foreign chicken nuggets and whatnot. So I am starting to lose faith in the system a bit. Also, my understanding is that Hermer is also potentially going to be in trouble with the ethics watchdog for not declaring his financial interest properly. So seems like it could be a bit of a dodgy guy. Do we want him being our Attorney General? I'm not sure.
Shamina Begum, Jerry Adams, a 9/11 terrorist. This case. You know, there's a trend here, isn't there?
Is it just a coincidence?
Well, look, to play devil's advocate, somebody has to represent those kind of wrong-uns. I mean, if we believe in free and fair courts... And
why is it always Hermer?
Somebody, but really...
Look, I'm not Hermer's greatest fan. I think there's a history with Attorney Generals. They're kind of lawyers who are fishes out of water operating in a political pond. But you're absolutely right, Ben. A principle of our legal system is people have a right to defence. And that means that lawyers of all ilks will end up defending people they don't agree with.
It's amazing, isn't it? He's got no political experience ever, and his mate Keir Starmer puts him in the Lords and suddenly he's Attorney General. That's amazing, really.
That said, Bill, thank you for praising my critique there. But on the flip side of that, yes, somebody has to represent these people, these cretins. However, if you're going to do that, I don't think you should be the Attorney General of the United Kingdom when so many of them... I mean, this guy here plotting to blow up Manchester... Not Arena, shopping centre.
Or the Prime Minister, who shouldn't end up being a Prime Minister either.
But any lawyer will have a back retinue of cases that they've taken on.
But this is an up-to-date client list, because he was a KC or QC...
Just before he was appointed.
Just before he was appointed. Usually that's kind of in the historic past for a lot of these kind of...
All right. Well, look, personally, I would have preferred that Keir had appointed Emily Thornberry to the
he'd been
job.
waiting for 3 years.
Who instead of bringing in someone from the outside. But hey, we are where we are.
£500,000 to the Labour Party.
All right, Charlotte, let's look at the Daily Mail, your newspaper. Well, not quite your newspaper. It's a separate operation, isn't it? Still Sunday, the Mail on Sunday?
Yeah, Mail on Sunday. This is the one day I don't go in.
Charlotte, I read rumours that I think you're one of the last operations to do so, that you're merging Mail Online, the Mail on Sunday, the Mail, you're all merging, jobs are going, is that right?
We're growing closer together, but the Mail on Sunday will always have a very distinct flavour. And crucially, I don't work in the office on a Sunday. That's how I can tell I work for the Mail on Sunday.
Is it still the case? I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, because I know you need to represent your employer fairly. The Mail on Sunday was always a bit, as far as I remember, a bit more liberal, maybe a bit more left of centre, and the Mail, of course, traditionally right of centre. Is that still the case now?
Slightly.
Do you think?
I think less so. I think they're more aligned now, because there was a time when the Mail on Sunday was a bit more Remain. And
that's
right. Not really the case. The paper's much more.
That's probably my memories of it. Yeah, the Brexit campaign.
That was a while ago.
We've got I love the features in the Mail, the Daily Mail,
I
the
love
Sunday
this
Mail.
feature.
I cured my menopausal rage by taking magic mushrooms at a $5,000 luxury resort. Is this what people do in sort of retirement these days?
I wouldn't be surprised, because it seems that psilocybin is a bit of a cure-all kind of new trendy thing to be doing. So, listen, I'm not there on the menopausal rage yet, but I would be very open to whatever it takes. And it seems like at least it's natural and not made in some Chinese lab like a vape or many other drugs.
Very true.
I think it's a while before we get it on the NHS, but...
when I start identifying as a woman, for my menopause, I might try this.
I'm just into the 5,000...
made mushroom coffees. Not sure that comes under the category of magic.
Yeah, that's meant to be pretty good.
But I feel a bit naughty when
One thing to say is magic mushrooms are free, and you can just go into a field and get them in Wales. So why she's paying £5,000 for a luxury retreat?
And there are risks associated with that as well. You take the wrong stuff and it can be lethal.
Well, I suppose that's true.
I guess, yeah. I mean, there is...
Kids don't do magic mushrooms.
Pay someone you can...
There is growing evidence that hallucinogenics and stuff such as DMT and so on, magic mushrooms, even LSD, in America, lots of big studies showing that it helps cure, for example, veterans who have come back with PTSD and so on. So,
well, Elon Musk takes ketamine. He talks about it all the time.
yes, he does. He microdoses.
That explains a lot.
Right, anyway, moving on. Still to come, why is this seal causing problems?
Where did you come from? I never even seen you out there. Where did you come from?
He's a naughty little seal. I'll reveal, though, why he's taking refuge on that boat in just a second. Back in a tick.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. We've got rain for Madeira over the next 24 hours, some stronger winds too, but much of the central Med will be dry with some sunny spells. We can see for Monday outbreaks of rain, strong winds, 17 Celsius Madeira. The Canary Islands generally dry, and much of western and central parts of the Mediterranean seeing some spells of sunshine. Unsettled further east towards Greece and across to Cyprus. Thunderstorms, outbreaks of showery rain. The outlook though is for plenty of sunny spells, temperatures in the high teens to low 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance is GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lately, it's getting much better. The people getting more educated in terms of overall well-being of the skin health rather than temporary aesthetic treatments. Because most of the treatments in aesthetic, it doesn't change the texture of the skin. It just gives like volumetric result or remove the wrinkles temporarily.
So what are the most popular treatments that people are after?
According to a statistic report, first is anti-wrinkle, then dermal filler, then energy-based device. But lately, biosimulators also became very popular. And
what do you mean by biosimulators?
Biosimulator, any substance that can change the texture of the skin, or like it will lead to postpone the aging process, or proliferate more collagen, increase the elasticity of the skin, such as polynucleotide or exosome, or different vitamins and minerals in the form of mesotherapy considered as a biosimulator.
Turkey's a particularly popular destination because the costs are so much lower. There have also been a lot of horror stories about what can happen when things go wrong, even people dying from post-surgery complications. What would you advise people?
Choose, as a practitioner or surgeon, very carefully, and never prioritize price over quality. This is your face after all, your body after all. And mistakes can be reversible. It can be irreversible, and sometimes it's not like a booking restaurant or hotel. It's a sensitive matter that can affect their confidence and skin and body for life. So they need to choose very wisely. They need to search what kind of methodology that particular surgeon, they perform the treatments. Are they using any safety tools?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Ben Leo Tonight. Now, one fisherman had a bit of an uncomfortable trip in Canada this week. Check this out.
Where did you come from? I never even seen you out there. Where did you come from? Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I was ever. Yeah. I don't know what to do. Go anywhere.
So if you're listening on radio, it was a seal which jumped on board a fisherman's boat because there's a pack of orcas surrounding the boat, obviously hunting the poor seal. My panel are back with me now. Any thoughts on that? Orcas are pretty, I mean, they're known as the...
the orcas could, the killer whales could sink that boat if they wanted to, so the woman must have been quite scared.
Killer whales look deceptively cute, but they're nasty.
Did the seal survive? I wasn't actually even sure.
Well, the whole clip, which we can't play because it's about 2 or 3 minutes, but the fisherman, the fisher lady, or the fisher them, as Sam Smith would say, fisher them, says to the seal, you've got to go. You can't stay on the boat because the orcas just keep surrounding it. The orcas would never attack the fisherman.
Well, they have sunk boats previously before.
They torpedo.
So she fed the seal to the wolves.
She booted the seal to save herself.
We don't see the ending, but she was suggesting she'd do so. I have an obsession with orcas and killer whales.
Part 2.
They were torpedoing boats in the Med at some point, but researchers, very interesting, researchers thought it was a pack of young orcas who were doing it for fun, like teenagers would maybe get up to mischief, egging houses or something. Not endorsing that, not very funny.
As you're a fan, have you ever seen the videos of them against sharks, killer sharks, great whites?
Orcas are amazing.
But I tell you what, it's been the week for whale stories. Did you see that footage of the guy who was swallowed by a whale?
Everywhere.
But the amazing thing was, it was his father who was filming it, and he carried on filming it after he'd gone into the whale's mouth.
After he saw his son die, basically, but then he didn't.
But then he came out. Yeah.
Amazing clip. I love
I
whales.
guess there wasn't much he could do other than...
I love them. I've got an obsession with whales. Right, let me show you some other great footage. This is the Air Force Thunderbird in America. Today, actually, from the Daytona 500 race, they were doing an overhead air show to celebrate the start of the race. Take a look at this. And again, if you're listening on radio, it's just some amazing point of view footage, a GoPro on the top of a pilot's head doing loop-the-loops, flying very low to the ground. Think of the red arrows, basically just awesome flying skills. Would you do that, Adam?
No, I'm scared of flying, to be fair.
Chloe?
But I'm a big fan of Top Gun, so that's great.
I wouldn't do it, but I love watching, and I used to live in a place where we were right down in a valley, and the Red Hours would zoom in and out of the valley during their display. And then health and safety, of course, came along, and then they eventually decided they had to do it far, far away where we could barely see them because it was too dangerous.
I'll tell you what, you refer to me being Minister of State for the Armed Forces. When I was in Scotland, I flew one of these planes on a flight simulator, and I crashed it.
Oh, you crashed it?
Yeah.
Of course you did, right. Coming up next, it's Headliners, presented by Leo Kurz. Leo, what's in store?
A seal to death, but we do have Simons and Kerry Marks, and we're going to be talking about the village in Essex that's had its population more than doubled by asylum seekers. There are now more asylum seekers than there are original residents. We've also got the latest on the mass stabbing in Austria. They've arrested a suspect, and you'll be shocked to hear it's a Syrian asylum seeker and not an Amish fundamentalist. I thought it was going to be the Amish's turn. And we've also got Keir Starmer promising troops on the ground in Ukraine. Will we defend their borders but not our own?
Great stuff. That village sounds really nice. Can't wait to go there. Thank you, Leo. Thanks to my panel, Adam, Chloe, Charlotte, Bill. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your company at home as well. I hope you've had a good weekend and you have a very good week as well. I'm back next Friday on Britain's Newsroom with Nana, and then, of course, next weekend, Saturday, Sunday, with Ben Leo Tonight. Thank you again. Good night. Up next is Headliners. First, your weather with Catherine. Good night.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. It is going to be largely dry on Monday. Still chilly out there, but it will be turning milder as we head midweek. So taking a look at the bigger picture then, we're still in this battleground with higher pressure to the east, low pressure towards the west, driving some south and southeasterly winds. But through this evening and overnight, we have a band of rain across Northern Ireland that will move its way north and eastwards, so affecting parts of western Scotland and southern Scotland later to bring the risk of some hill snow. Elsewhere across much of England and Wales, largely dry, often cloudy, but there will be some clear spells, and that's where we could see a touch of frost developing to start Monday morning. But to start Monday morning across much of Scotland, actually it is a largely dry start out there. We'll even see some sunshine across northern parts of Scotland to start the day, but across Orkney there are some showers moving through. Out towards the west, that's where we have some showery outbreaks of rain that could turn wintry over the hills. Across Northern Ireland, cloudy to start the day, and across much of England and Wales, but there are some brighter breaks developing, especially across the southeast of England through Monday morning. So as we head through the day then, we should see some glimmers of sunshine coming into southeastern parts of England through the day, often cloudy out towards the west, with still a feed of showers across parts of Orkney before more persistent rain comes into Northern Ireland later on in the day. Otherwise, it is still chilly out there, especially in the east underneath the cloud, but out towards the west, temperatures up to 8 or 10 degrees. So through Tuesday morning, this band of rain will continue to push its way north and eastwards across Scotland, could fall as freezing rain and snow, so do take care first thing. That then clears its way through, and across much of England and Wales, it's largely dry and fine. Wednesday, we'll see some